Greetings and welcome to the Pampering Myself Podcast. I'm your host, Pam Jones, aka Jonesy. Our mission is to empower women in every facet of life, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Join us as we explore self-care, personal growth, and holistic wellness, inspiring you to embrace your journey and nurture your inner strength. So grab your favorite snack or beverage, snuggle up in your favorite chair, and relax, because every woman deserves a little pampering. Hey, podcast listeners. Welcome to this special episode in honor of all the dads, stepdads, uncles, grandpas, godpops, bonus dads, and those amazing men who show up as strong, steady, and supportive father figures in our lives. Today's episode is a little extra special. A few family members will share their personal stories about the men who helped shape them, whether with wisdom, humor, discipline, or just that perfect grill master touch. But before we dive into all the love and laughter, let's take a moment to talk about how Father's Day even came to be. I mean, moms have had Mother's Day on lockdown since the 1900s, but dads, well, let's just say it took a little bit longer and a lot of persistence for Father's Day to get the recognition it truly deserves. So where did Father's Day come from? The story starts back in Spokane, Washington in 1909 with a woman named Sonoya Smart Dove. Yep, a woman created Father's Day. She was listening to a sermon about Mother's Day and thought, wait a minute, what about fathers? She was one of 6 children raised by her single father, William Smart, who was a Civil War veteran, and after her mother passed away. And she wanted a day to honor fathers like hers, who stepped up in a big way. So she pitched the idea to local churches and organizations for support. And as they say, bam! The first Father's Day was celebrated on June 19th, 1910. That's right. Sonoya said, quote, "Dads deserve flowers and speeches too," unquote. But here's where things got funny and a little shady. While folks warmed up to the idea over time, some people joked that it was just another holiday made up to sell ties and tools. Meanwhile, Father's Day was out here in the back row like, I like a little love too, please. It actually took over 60 years before it became official. In 1966, President Lyndon B. Johnson issued the first presidential proclamation designating the third Sunday in June as Father's Day. But it wasn't until 1972, you heard me, 1972, that President Richard Nixon finally signed it into law as a permanent national holiday. So in short, dads had to wait a bit, but their day finally came. And thank goodness for Sonoya Smart Dove, right? What does Father's Day really mean? Now, gifts are great. Nothing wrong with a brand new set of socks or a backyard barbecue. But at the heart of it, Father's Day is about acknowledgement. It's about saying thank you for your guidance. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for every check your oil. Be home before dark, and I'm proud of you. Whether your father was the quiet type, the corny joke king, the coach, the mentor, or the man who taught you how to be strong and soft at the same time, Father's Day is about remembering that love shows up in many forms. Now, I know not everyone grew up with a traditional father figure. So today's also a beautiful moment to honor the stand-ins, the men who chose to love, teach, protect, and encourage. Sometimes that's an uncle, a neighbor, a teacher, or a big brother who became the rock you needed. Fatherhood isn't just about biology, it's about responsibility, compassion, and consistent love. So as we celebrate Father's Day with all the grilled smoke, laughter, and heartfelt I love yous, I hope you'll pause to remember or reach out to the men who've made a difference in your story. And now, speaking of stories, here are a few of my family members who were kind enough to share a few of their favorite memories.
What can I say about my pappy? That's what I've called him since I can remember. Not even sure where that came from. My mom, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, my pappy. I would say I was a daddy's girl coming up. He always worked 2 jobs, wasn't around as much as I would like, but he was always around when it counted. You know, holidays, graduations, any of the pivotal life milestones. He was always larger than life to me for some reason. I looked at him as Superman. I would hang on to his every word. He seemed to have the best stories. Being a cop, I wouldn't say he brought his work home, but he definitely instilled a sense of awareness and strength by learning from others' mistakes. He used their stupidity to teach me how to think about things that most people overlook and make better choices for myself. He never sugarcoated anything. I was taught early on as a child how to handle firearms, what to do in emergency situations, how to react, who to reach out to for help, and in what order. Those things were instilled in me like muscle memory. I was all but tough until that one day, which brings me to one of my most memorable memories. I recall getting into a fight with the little boy down the street. He had beat me up, of course. So naturally, my instinct is to run home and go get Superman. I'll be back with somebody bigger and badder, and we gonna handle this. Walk into the house, screaming, crying. He come out, what you crying for? I let him know, Jason down the block, Jason just beat me up. He said, oh, no. I'm not raising no punks. This what we gonna do here. You about to go back down there, and you gonna have to defend yourself and stand up for yourself, and you let Jason know he don't just be hitting on you like that. Man, terrified. That's exactly what I did. I walked out that door, went down that street. Soon as I saw Jason, I just remembered just swinging. Next thing I know, he getting up, screaming, crying, running to his house. I take off back home, running in the house, this time with a big old cheese on my face. Daddy, guess what? I beat him up. I sure did. My dad always wanted to make sure that we had whatever tools we needed to protect and take care of ourselves. He always dropped jewels on me. Would still say he's Superman, but now he's known as the fixer. Any problems, any situations, any issues, he's always been there to help me out and help me through them. Most of the time, just take care of it for me. But for that, I'm forever grateful. Thanks, old man. Happy Father's Day.
My father died on September 9th, 1985. It was the 9th month, the 9th day, 9 days after I turned 9. And as someone who considers herself a bit clairvoyant or claircognizant and a bit of an empath, it really did have a tremendous impact on me psychologically. I remember waking in the middle of the night and just knowing that he was going to die. And my mother, God bless her, she let me call him, or she dialed him. And I told him not to go to sleep. I said, Dad, don't go to sleep, because if you go to sleep, you're not going to wake up. Now, him knowing what was happening, the inevitability of his passing, he didn't tell me. He assured me that everything was going to be okay, that he would talk to me in the morning. So I fell asleep on the phone, and he wasn't there. When I woke up, the phone was hung up, and I panicked. And that's when I was told he had passed away. We had a strong connection. He sensed when something was wrong with me, and I seemed to sense the same even as a young child. And he was very protective over me and my sister. He was just a pretty cool dude, and it's weird to think that he only lived to 27 years old. You know, my son now is older than my dad was when he passed away. And so, you know, the fact that I have these amazing memories of him, and that I only had him for 9 years of my life is really something that I find pleasure in holding on to. I feel like we're still in conversation. I'm still asking him deep questions about, you know, decisions I'm making in the world, and lessons that I'm learning, and you know, and I'm just really excited. And this one funny thing I want to share is one of the last memories that I have of him, besides the fact that he used to drive this long green car that we used to call the Green Hornet, which was hilarious. But he went on this TV commercial thing that Disney was doing at Hart Plaza. And he was on the television. My aunt told us to watch the television. And while we were watching the television, I see him with Mickey Mouse ears on. And I'll never forget the song that they were singing. They were singing M-I-C, see you real soon, K-E-Y. Why? Because I love you. M-O-U-S-E, Mickey Mouse. And so I've held on to that now for almost 40 years. And so, you know, it's not the length of time that you have someone you love in your life. It's the impact that they make on your life during the time that you have them.
My father was not around a lot when I was young, but he still had a great influence on my lifestyles. When I became older as an adult, that's when my father and I got really close, and he became more than just a dad. He became my friend. We used to sit and talk for hours, just about anything and everything, about how life was, how life is supposed to be. And he was always concerned about the rest of the members of his family. Always wanted to know how his granddaughter was doing. Always wanted to know how my wife Pam was doing. Always wanted to know how his grandson was doing. But he spent most of his time trying to apologize to me for not being around when I was younger, and saying he wished he had been a better dad. But I would tell him right up front that everything he had done had influenced my lifestyles, and he was a great dad. He didn't have to feel like that. And we used to spend a lot of times just talking and talking and talking.
Father's Day is always a bit of a challenge for me because, you know, I haven't seen my biological father in 20 years, I believe. And, you know, that can make this time of year difficult because it invites me to reflect on the opportunities lost and the moments not shared and the experiences not had. You know, those things that you imagine a father and son doing. You know, the stereotypical things, the sporting events, the tossing the ball in the backyard, you know, every little thing in between. And I think a lot of people think of those things as irreplaceable. You know, I tend to disagree. I think that this time of year also invites me to reflect on how the value of having a father isn't just in the blood connection. You know, a father is not inherently valuable just because they're related to you, right? There is a very, very meaningful aspect of a father that must be active, that must be in the doing and in the representation that the young man or young woman can take. And I was fortunate enough to have that from other members of my family, particularly from my uncles. You know, my Uncle Greg and my Uncle Tony were always there. They were very present, and both represented what hopefully my dad would have been present to give to me were he around. My Uncle Greg, he was there to stoke my interest in sports from a young age. He was the birth of my fascination in cars and why I drive a Mustang today, and am on my third Mustang. I still remember when he took me joyriding during the Woodward Dream Cruise in a Mustang, and it's a moment that I've never forgotten, even though it must have been 15 years ago. He supported my fleeting interest in musical instruments and gave me an electric guitar and all the fixings and amp and a gig bag and all the things when I could have sworn that was going to be the next thing I took up, and I could not play a single chord on a guitar today. But he was there for that. My Uncle Tony, he played a different role. He taught me discipline. He taught me how to be responsible, how to be present. He taught me how to change the brakes on a car, how to fix a flat, how to jump a battery when it's dead. He taught me how to mow the lawn, how to be responsible for taking out the trash and keeping things orderly and tidy, and making sure that when things around you and people around you needed support, that you were there to support. When I was interested in playing basketball when I was in middle school, he took me out to the courts to work on the little bit of skills I had as a middle schooler. He taught me how to drive and lent me his car to drive to practice when he definitely probably should not have. When I took a internship at a public defender's office in Ann Arbor and no one was out in Ann Arbor, he let me borrow his car for the entire summer so I could have a way to get from where I was staying to my job every day, and I think those two, primarily, I'm eternally grateful for them, for always being what I needed them to be, even when I didn't know. And I think that that's a role of a father, and it's the role of a father figure to model and to be what, in my case, a young man needs them to be long before they ever know what it is they need. So when I have an opportunity like this to reflect and to maybe even sit and wonder, if I could have chosen at the time, if I could have decided what I would have wanted modeled for me, who I would have wanted to be there for me to make sure that I'm the man I am today, I can confidently say that I would have still chosen my Uncle Greg and my Uncle Tony to be the shining examples of what a father figure, what an uncle, and what the best replacement could be for someone like me who absolutely needed them. So to them and to all the fathers and to all the father figures, I say Happy Father's Day.
I feel truly blessed to have shared so many years with my father, so many memories and lessons learned. And as an adult, we can appreciate them. But as a kid, not so much. Of all the things my father ever said to me, some funny, some firm, one line keeps showing up in my adult life like a quiet whisper during some very loud moments. He said, "Pam, you don't always have to be right. Sometimes let the other person be right, even if they're not." Ooh, at that time I thought, what kind of backwards advice is that? I mean, if I'm right, why would I let someone else believe otherwise? But here's the thing. My father wasn't telling me to abandon my truth. He was teaching me how to choose peace over pride. And as I got older, I realized how often we waste energy trying to prove we're right, debating minor things, clapping back on social media, correcting folks who aren't even opening to listen. And for what? To win an argument but lose the moment? One time I was in a very heated conversation. Okay, so let's just call it an argument. And I could feel myself ready to fire off the facts. But in that moment, I heard my father's voice again. Pam, let the other person be right, even if they're not. So I paused, took a breath, and let it go. And you know what? The conversation ended, the energy shifted, and I didn't lose anything. My father's advice wasn't about surrender. It was about wisdom. After knowing when to speak and when to be still, when to defend and when to just nod and say, all right then. Now don't get me wrong. I'll still stand up for what matters. But I've learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply let it be. And that is one of many lessons my father taught me. So this Father's Day, I raise a toast to my dad, not just for his love, but for his lessons, and especially one, humility over ego. Happy Heavenly Father's Day, Dad. Love you and miss you. And there you have it. Beautiful, heartfelt memories in honor of the men we'll never forget. Whether your father or someone who stood in is still with you or lives on in spirit, I hope this episode reminds you of just how powerful presence, love, and legacy can be. If this touched your heart, please share it with someone you love. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, or leave a little note in the reviews. Until next time, stay encouraged, stay uplifted, and remember, a little thank you can go a long way. And as always, don't forget to pamper yourself. And happy Father's Day to all the men out there who fill that role in their own special way. Goodbye.